still popping into the meeting. Welcome everyone. My name is Ross Hawkins. I'm the director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center, and welcome to our first ever Academic Advisor Forum via Zoom. I'm so glad to see so many squares and so many smiling faces joining us today for the Advisor Forum. So the title of this advisor forum is What's New in Advising? And I think most of us have felt like there's a lot of newness to advising over the last few months. This advisor forum today, we're going to hear from a few guest speakers to just talk a little bit about some changes in their respective areas that has an impact on advisors. Before we get started with our first speaker, though, I just wanted to mention, please feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions. I would ask that you keep your mics muted during the forum so there's less feedback. We are tracking attendance for the advisor forum, so those of you who are master advisors will receive 1 hour of master advisor credit for attending the Zoom advisor forum. In order to take attendance, please enter your first and last name in the chat feature. We are going to save the chat and make sure that those who attend do receive 1 hour of master advisor credit, so please do that. If you do have any problems, if you're having any issues hearing any of the speakers, again, you can use the chat feature to let them know as well. Kimmy Walker is recording this advisor forum. Since we are doing the advisor forums this fall via Zoom, we have decided to record the advisor forums and allow others to watch at a later date for those interested. So again, everyone, welcome to the advisor forum. I see a lot of names popping up in the chat feature. So again, please use that to enter your name for master advisor credit. I am going to go ahead and introduce Teresa Haney as our first speaker. Teresa is also new. So what's new in advising? Well, Teresa is new to Missouri State University, and Teresa is the director of admissions, and she is going to share some information out of her office that she thought advisors would like to know about. So Teresa, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ross. And hello, everyone. I know I've gotten a chance to meet some of you. It looks like there's quite a few new faces as well. So look forward to hopefully meeting you all in person eventually. But until then, you know, Zoom works, right? So as Ross mentioned, my name is Teresa Haney. I'm the director of admissions here at Missouri State, and I started back on May 1st. So it's definitely been an interesting ride so far, working partly from home and then a few days on campus, as it looks like some of you are still doing as well. So it's been great. Everyone's been very understanding as I've joined under the pandemic, and have done my best to get my feet wet and get in there and meet people and learn as best I can. But it's definitely been interesting thus far. So just so you all know, I worked in admissions on the other side of the state for about 8-9 years as an admission counselor, and then also as an assistant director of admissions at another university. So I'm excited to continue my career with Missouri State. So some things that you guys need to know. Oh my gosh. I have a son home with me today. We have actually been quarantining. Sorry about that. As you all know, you have probably undergone some of the same interruptions over the last several months, so I apologize for that. So anyway, some things that are new in the Office of Admissions that I think will be useful for you to know. You may have already heard that we did go through and finished up a test optional policy for admission. We did it for this fall, kind of temporarily, but then we did go through and actually got it approved by the board. So any student that applies to the university, they would still need to meet our Common Core curriculum. So they would still have to have the correct number of English and math and that sort of thing courses. But if they have a 3.25 or higher GPA, they would not need to submit a test score for admission purposes. Now, currently, they would still need to submit a test score for a test score for scholarships. And I do believe there is a larger committee that's going to be meeting probably in the next couple weeks or couple months to see what some test optional scholarship policies might look like, but that's still in the very, very early stages. Alex, you need to go away right now, okay? Sorry again. So any student, like I said, that has a 3.25 or higher GPA would not need to submit a test score. If they fall below the 3.25 GPA, it's the same scale that we had before, where depending on the GPA, they would be able to look and see the ACT score that they would need for admission purposes. I will say that we are, in terms of numbers and where we are, we're actually tracking quite a bit ahead in terms of applicants for next fall already. However, our admits are very flat. We are seeing a lag in getting transcripts from high school. So I know there's some schools that are just now even getting back, or they started back last week after the holiday. So I think schools are just behind in getting them out. So we hope to see the admit numbers improve probably over the next month or two as we start getting more and more transcripts in from the high school once they kind of get into the swing of things and settled back in for the year. In terms of students not being able to take the ACT right now, though, we are going to start an individual review process. And what that means is even those students that fall below a 3.25, we will probably start reviewing them, seeing how they did in those core classes, because we have gotten feedback from some students and parents that they don't even want to apply because they don't meet the 3.25 cutoff and they are not able to get into a test. So there are ACT tests happening. However, there's very limited seating. And so some students are having trouble getting into a test, even though the test is now being offered. So we are going to start doing individual review, and that's automatic for any student that applies. They're not going to have to fill out any supplemental application or anything like that. So that's the real big change that happened. In addition to that, we are accepting super scores. So this may not affect you guys as much, but just for your awareness, when a student applies and they send us the score, we will now be mixing and matching, essentially, is what a super score is. So let's say a student takes an ACT in October and again in December and February. What we would do is we would take the best English score, the best, math score, science, and reading, and combine it to create what's called a super score. So we would be mixing and matching and taking those subject tests from different test administrations or different test dates to come up with their super score. And that would be for admission purposes and also for scholarships, which is a big change. So that is something that a lot of families have been asking about over the last several years. So we're really excited to make that change and to allow students to send us the super scores, like I said, for admission, or for most students, most importantly, would be for scholarship purposes, we would accept that super score. So those are some big things happening in our office. We are moving forward with special events as well. And in fact, we are going to add a second showcase on November 21st is the day that we're going with. And that is because in the past years, we didn't limit the number. Last year, we had around 540 guests or 540 students, prospective students and their families attend. And this year, because of the current situation with building limits and that sort of thing, we have to cap our registrations at 200. So it's significantly less than what we had on campus last year. And so that's why we're adding that second date. And so far, families seem to be excited. I think they are yearning for any sense of normalcy, and for them attending a campus visit or a big visit day experience, I think feels normal, if you will, to them. So we're excited that we're still able to host visitors on campus, and that'll be coming up. We have one on Saturday, October 31st on Halloween, and then we'll be adding that second date on Saturday, November 21st. So those are the updates I have. I didn't see any questions pop up in the chat, but I will be looking. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them up there, and I'd be happy to answer them in the chat. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and as Teresa mentioned, please use the chat feature to ask questions. That way others can also view the questions asked to Teresa. So make sure that you do make sure it's everyone can see. I think it's a good learning experience. Next, I will turn it over to Margaret Weaver, who is going to talk about the English placement exam and changes for that. So Margaret.
Well, good afternoon. Unlike Teresa, I am not new. I've been here about 27 years, and I will tell you the learning curve has been huge with all of the new changes that we're being asked to implement. So forgive me, I'm going to go ahead and share screen with a PowerPoint because I think being able to see some of the details of what we're doing with the English placement will be very helpful for you. And let's see here. It doesn't look like it's allowing me to share screen with you.
Okay, Margaret, let me check on that. I made you a co-host, but let me see if there's something else going on there.
Okay.
I changed one setting. You might be able to try again now, but let us know if it's still not.
Okay. It does not appear to be allowing me to share screen. Do I have co-host privileges? You might want to check that, Ross.
Try one more time. Still not.
Nope, it doesn't seem to be allowing me to share screen.
I've got you set as a co-host, and I actually just changed it so all participants. So let's see. Any of the other staff in my office have suggestions? Kimmy?
No, all our settings are to where she should be able to, so I'm not sure what's happening. Margaret, do you see the share screen green button, or is that not letting you? Okay. And then is it just not letting you select anything?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know. Let me go check a couple more things. I can try one more thing real quick. But Ross,
she could send it to one of you.
That's what I was going to say. Margaret, if you email it to me, I can share my screen.
Okay.
And I would be happy to do that because I just tested and it does let me share screen.
Okay.
So and it's Ross Hawkins at MissouriState.edu.
Okay. And while we're working out the bugs, would you like to go ahead and jump over to another speaker?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Even though I think our next speaker may have a screen to share as well, so we'll see how it goes. Diana Garland from the Bear Claw. Diana, would you want to go ahead and present on how things are working in the Bear Claw this semester?
Sure, and I won't have to share screen because I've got a handout that I can just email. I was trying to actually insert it earlier and I couldn't insert it either. So, but I'm Diana Garland and I'm with the Bear Claw. I'm the director of the Learning Commons, which is part of the Bear Claw. And Michael Frizzell and I jointly manage that particular space. But we are this semester trying to keep the space as socially distant as possible. We honestly have very few students that are coming in and using the space. And when they are in, we tell them they have to have, one student per table, and we've got it all set up so that it's a very safe environment, I feel like right now. As far as the tutoring goes, I do have 31 tutors that are in the Bear Claw right now. We normally have 50, but in order for them to keep enough hours, I just did not replace many students when they graduated this spring. So I have 31 tutors. Most of those are in the sciences and math. There actually is only one other tutor that is not in those particular areas, and she's in art history. but some of those tutors can take care of things like psychology and sociology and just a few other different things here and there. We also, those are all students, they're put into our tutor track system as tutors, so students can schedule a one-to-one appointment with each of those. In that same system, we also have 17 College of Business graduate assistants, and we have 15 chemistry graduate assistants. So both of those groups of people can help up to 5 people at one time. So students can make appointments with them, or if the graduate assistant chooses to give out their particular link, their link through Blackboard Collaborate, they can do that, and then they just let us know how many people attended different sessions. For the students to schedule appointments, they go to the My Missouri State, and that's the form I was trying to actually upload, and I couldn't do that. So I'll see if I can drag it. Yeah, it won't let me do that either. So I will send that though to Ross or Kimmy, and they can attach it whenever we get done. But they go to their My Missouri State, and then there's a box where they can click on their Bear Claw, where it says Bear Claw and Tutor Track. When they click on that, it will bring up their list of classes they're enrolled in, and then they can click on that particular class, and it will bring up all the tutors for the next 4 days that can tutor the subject that they're interested in. It is a very particular system, so that if, for instance, this weekend I had a student that wanted to have help with Chemistry 171, which is the lab. The graduate assistants in chemistry did not tell us that they could help with labs. So those labs were not in there. So we've gone through and added the one student, or the one graduate assistant that could help with the lab. We added that to her section. So now students can schedule that. So they do have to be enrolled in a particular course in order to see a tutor. So if in the past we've had students that were like, I'm going on study away and I want to refresh myself on Spanish. And, you know, I want to meet with a tutor. They cannot do that unless they're enrolled in a Spanish class. So that's one of the very important things, that it's only for the classes they're enrolled in. They're 30 minutes. Our tutors are one-on-one. They're limited to 2 hours per week. So they can schedule a back-to-back appointment and have an hour if they need that. If we do not have a tutor for a particular course this semester, in the past, we've always just hired somebody to help students, but because quite a bit more complicated this semester, we probably will not hire additional tutors for this semester, but we will see what we can do to try to help them. We've got a couple of graduate assistants who can help with study skills or time management, and we're also referring them to, of course, to their faculty member, or to see if the department has graduate assistants that can help them, or to an academic coach in the CAST office. We will do, we will do whatever we can do to try to help the student. We are working on a Zoom drop-in for math, like we've had the drop-in tables in the Bear Claw, but we do not have that working right now. So don't tell anybody that that's in the process, but if we can get that going, it would be great. So we're going to try to get that going, but it's a much more complicated thing than having just individual appointments. So, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any, and I'll email that sheet to you. But yeah, that's the one sheet that kind of has what we do and everything for the semester. Russ, the other one was the one with the how to schedule an appointment that I was going to put in the chat box, but do you have that one too?
No, this is the one that Michael just sent me.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, I'll send you the other one, but you can add it to the chat box after a while. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat box.
Yeah, absolutely. Continue to use the chat feature for questions. I know that we've had a couple people join the Zoom session a couple minutes late. As a reminder, if you've not yet done it or if you just joined, please put your first and last name in the chat feature so we can record attendance for Master Advisor credit. Next, I'm going to hold off on Margaret. I'm going to go ahead and go to Michael, who also works in the Bear Claw, to share information. And Michael, let me know if you want me to keep this up or if you would prefer that I stop sharing the screen.
Actually, I'll show them the website. That might be better.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I am at home. I am in quarantine waiting for my results as my peer leader had tested positive. And so I went and got my nose swabbed today, and now I'm sitting at home waiting what's next. This isn't my house. This is a lot nicer. Anyway, so here we are. My half of the Bear Claw deals with the Writing Center, the As a Professor program, the course mentoring or PASS program, peer assisted study session, and a brand new center that I want to talk to you about. But I think where I'm going to start will likely be with the Writing Center because it's near and dear to my heart. And the Writing Center had an interesting problem last March, and that was, what do we do when we shut down? Now, the interesting thing was that we were experimenting with live sessions using Blackboard Collaborate in February before we got the notice. I swear it's not our fault. It just happened that way. And we were doing really well with it too. We've also been doing an email consultation for several years with dual credit high schools in the area. Faculty and staff have used the email system because coming into the space was awkward at times. So we transitioned almost immediately. From the day Missouri State University reopened, we were ready to go. It was slow to start with. I think students were holding back because everything was new. Classes' sudden shift caused a lot of problems, but they sure got into the groove of it over the summer because the Writing Center's sessions doubled over the summer. That did not break my heart, but it certainly freaked out the writing consultants that I have on staff. And that became a problematic for us planning for spring. How many do I hire? What do I do? What is it going to look like? As we started to explore the ideas, Diana and I were talking a lot about, this is a real problem. We can't have all of this in the space. We just don't have the room for it. The social distancing wasn't good. And then when you're working in the Writing Center, you tend to be hip to hip. There's not a whole lot of social distancing going on. Sure, we could share a screen and we could pass a computer back and forth, or, we could sit apart with the screen between us, but there was something about the body language and the way that things work in the center that was just a little bit different than the rest. So am I sold completely on my plan? Not really, but I do think it's working and students seem to be happy with it. So here's what we're doing in the Writing Center this fall. Method one is the email consultation, and it's pretty simple. The student attaches a document in Word and sends us an email with the answer to a few questions to help us get started. And that's it. Pretty simple. I think that's why it was used so heavily this summer, was that it is that simple. The problem is that they're not getting immediate feedback, right? If it's 1 to 5 pages, we kind of set a timeline on 2 business days. And the reason we did that was simply because of staffing issues. Most likely they'll be answered right away. However, I did hire a lot less staff to accommodate some other areas in the Bear Claw, so we just didn't have the support we needed for immediate response and feedback on that. So if your students are saying, look, I've got to meet with somebody today, it just doesn't work that way. We can pray with them, and that's about it, okay? We really need them to start planning in advance. Part of the things that make the Writing Center work so well is that they are editing their work afterwards. So we assume that those writers are sending us a rough draft. They will accept thoughts and comments and statements in the Word chat, and then they'll go back and edit their own papers. So far, that seems to be working well. The second is we're using synchronous support using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, not Zoom. The Zoom limited us to 40 minutes. I really didn't want to pay for another license because I'd rather pay more staff. We had one for the Bear Claw that was being used in several ways, so we decided to use Blackboard Collaborate. It has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage being students are used to it. They've been seeing it for quite some time. The disadvantage, it doesn't like sharing Word docs at all. You have to share a PDF to do that. And so we included some discussion on how to transfer your document from a Word to a PDF. And then we can mark on that together in real time. The problem is that it also doesn't allow you to print what we've marked. So you have to do some print screening and capturing. So we've trained our consultants to talk about those things to help the client really work with their paper in real time. A lot of students like this. It's been working well, especially for students with disabilities. We've also noted that we've had a lot more usage in the Writing Center from other areas of the country that maybe never set foot on campus, suddenly finding us using Blackboard Collaborate. They have to set this up 24 hours in advance. And how they do that is they send me an email with a couple dates and times, and I'll do the rest for them. Pretty simple stuff. And that's what I like about the way that we handled the Writing Center, is that we kept it straightforward and simple. We felt like that was probably the key to making sure that students use the Bear Claw in an effective way. The simpler Diana and I could make it, the more likely it was students wouldn't feel stressed and go ahead and use us. That's a lot of stuff to talk about just in the Writing Center, but I've got more. But if you have any questions, I'm going to jump in and out of these screen shares just to make sure that anything about the Writing Center is straight up in the chat room I can answer right now. The next group I'll share is brand new for us, and I'm really happy with this one. I've been trying for quite some time to get this operational, and it is a presentation center. In the Writing Center, we've been working with outlines from COM 115 for quite some time, and then helping students with citations in APA style. I think what made me want to do more with this was that we had a lot of students coming and saying, gosh, I wish we had someone to talk to and walk through our presentations. Well, now they do. Right now, we're limiting that to COM 115, but they can find information on the Writing Center's page for now. Until I've developed this more fully, I didn't want to have a standalone page. I've been working with Dr. Brazil in COM 115's office to ensure that we have a working, pedagogically sound presentation center where the students can deliver speeches and we'll give them feedback. Right now, I have 3 presentation consultants working in the space, 2 comm majors, that would be Paige and Brody, and then a theater major, Fiona. Thought those were a pretty good mix of people that can help you out. Brody, I swear, doesn't make that face often during a session, but apparently he felt strong enough about it that he used it for his bio. The support that we're using right now would be to schedule a video consultation by using our tutor track system that Diana described, and they can make their own appointments in advance. And we'd work together with them just like we are today. The other one, after our first meeting, the presentation consultants and I sat down and thought, I wonder if we could do something like the Writing Center, where they're sending us emails. And since everybody has access to things like TikTok, apparently we still have access as a country. I learned that this morning. Or YouTube or places like that. You could videotape your videotape. That showed my age, didn't it? You can videotape your session and then send us the email link and we'll comment on it that way as well. So the presentation consultants and the writing consultants act in a similar fashion. We are not editing papers and we're not telling them what to say. What we're doing is helping with suggestions, cajoling, crossing our fingers and hoping that they make these changes later on. And what we're really excited to see in this presentation center is that if it is successful this semester or 2, and we get good feedback not only from the faculty teaching these courses, but from the students enrolled in them, I'd like to expand the idea of a presentation center to maybe all the way up to graduate students who are preparing for their first poster sessions or sessions at conferences. I think that would be a great way for them to start thinking about, professional public speaking. So that session really makes me happy that we have that center. The last thing I'm going to talk about from my unit is the Peer Assisted Study Session, or PASS program. Now, when we talk about the PASS program, I've been actually trying to phase it out the last few years. And the reason I was phasing it out is that I was just running out of budget. Diana and I will tell you that most of the budget that we have goes straight to paying student wages. If we can get the space painted, it's an act of Congress. I mean, we really are focusing on making sure our students are getting a fair wage for their work. They're getting raises when they come back, that they're getting paid for training and these sorts of things. And so this has been important to us. Having said that, in March, early April, Cliff came to me and said, what can we do in the center that you're not doing now? And I said, well, we can bring back the PASS program. I've got a model in the University of Rhode Island that costs a little bit cheaper. And it just so happens I've been in contact with them. So let's talk a little bit. And so what I did was reach out to faculty who are teaching large lecture-based courses in the sciences. So we're talking chemistry, biomedical sciences, 110, 310, and these large courses. And I said, okay, what we need is a good student, someone who has been successful in your class. Send me their names, I'll recruit them, and I'll train them on group facilitation methodologies, pedagogy, so that they can help your students study for the material you're lecturing in class. This is the way the PASS program has always worked. We used to embed them in that so they would watch the class every day like a war journalist, taking notes and these sorts of things. And then afterwards they would hold their own sessions. But because that was expensive and they really weren't having a lot of contact with students, except for maybe 2 or 3 hours a week, what we're paying them now is for sessions 2 times a week, office hours for those who cannot make those sessions, and then an hour of planning or working with that faculty member to ensure that they're delivering material that makes sense for that class. And you can see from the list on the screen, the classes that we approved this semester. It's our best kept secret, because if you are not enrolled in one of these courses, you don't use this. You use the Bear Claw General so that you're able then to jump in on maybe the chemistry tutors or the biomedical science tutoring that Diana has on her end. This is specially designed for these sections only. Does it work? That remains to be seen as well. Like half of what I'm doing this semester, it's all an experiment, right? But University of Rhode Island has been really successful in transitioning their supplemental instruction models to this model and paying a little bit less every semester to ensure that they have more courses supported. So a lot of my money is going to experimental things this semester, and it's a lot of work on the back end to make sure that students are getting where they need to go. So that's my half of the Bear Claw. If you have any questions about that, you can always drop this into the chat room, or I know Ross has received a handout that kind of details everything that Diana and I talked about today, and it has both of our emails on that. So if you think of something later on, you can always shoot us an email. We'd be happy to help. So Ross, that concludes my portion of this report.
Okay, thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. And again, if you have questions, continue to enter those questions on the chat. Next, I'm going to come back to Margaret. Margaret, I've got the PowerPoint, so let me try to share my screen and hopefully we'll get it working for you.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, so one of the biggest things that's new in advising for us is the online English placement. And if you want to go ahead and do the slideshow up at the top, Ross, yeah. There you go. Okay, so these are the 2 classes that most of you are very familiar with. Most of our students, and you can click the next slide. Most of our students take English 110 Writing 1. which is a 3-hour course. This is something that we've offered for the majority of our students. In fact, only 5% of the students here at Missouri State actually take some of the precursor courses to English 110. And most of you are very familiar. Gosh, since I've been here for 27 years, we've always had the prerequisite English 100 course. 3 years ago, we started offering the co-requisite course. Essentially what this does is it links a section of English 100 with a section of English 110, and the student takes both classes concurrently. So it's a 6-hour writing class that they have with the exact same instructor, where they get a little bit more hands-on lab time where they can work with the instructor on particular skill sets for English 110. And you'll notice both the co-requisite and of course English 110 standalone meet the general education requirement. Now, what are the exceptions to which English class to take? Next slide. Ross? There you go. The only exception is that if a student brings in an advanced placement exam or an international baccalaureate, and you can find this information on the university website. These are the only two exceptions for getting credit for English 110. We do not have any placement mechanism for a student to place out of English 110, except for AP and IB. Next slide. So placement happens in one of 4 ways. Most of you are somewhat familiar with this, but I thought it would help to put all of them up here so you can take a look at them. So if a student brings in an ACT or an SAT score, our system is set up so that the student is automatically placed. As advisors, you don't have to do anything. The system tells you what is the proper placement. If it's an international student who has been taking courses at the English Language Institute, the English Language Institute contacts the English department and they make a recommendation whether the student should take English 100, the co-requisite, or English 110 based on course scores and exam scores. Okay. Another possible placement, many of our international students do not come in and participate in the English Language Institute. And instead they take the TOEFL, which is the test of English as a foreign language, or they take the IELTS. And if they have a score for those, it allows our department then to go in and process and override. This is not something that the system is set up to automatically process. So when they have a score, we look at it and then we place them in the appropriate class. This year, though, we've encountered a very interesting situation. We have many students that are coming in with no test scores, no ACT, SAT, TOEFL, IELTS. They do not have any test scores. And as Teresa suggested, one of the things that you noticed is that many of our students are coming in now under a new program that we've established if they have a 3.25 GPA. So this is going to become an even larger situation that we need to address. So just to kind of recap, so if a student has a test score, most of you are familiar with this, the ACT, if the student has an 18 or above, the system places the student in English 110. Okay, and then after they pass 110, they move to writing 2. If the student has lower than an 18 on the English portion of the ACT, the student takes 100. And you can see the requisite TOEFL scores there. You can go ahead and click again and again. Now, we've developed this other pathway for students. Whoops, can you go back? Thank you. So the co-requisite allows the student to take, as I mentioned, 100 and 110 at the same time, and then they jump immediately to writing 2, okay, after they pass that class. click one more time. There you go. The only caveat is if a student enrolls in the co-requisite, they have to have an override if their English ACT score is lower than an 18. The system will block them from being able to register for the co-requisite. Next slide. We do have multiple sections that are online for many of our students, more than we've had in the past, particularly for our international students. Next slide. And many of you have probably noticed, or will notice if you start to look at the schedule on October 1st, things are going to look a little bit different for English 100 and 110. So most of our sections are being offered blended. What that means is that 50% of the class is offered online asynchronous, and the other for 50% is seated or synchronous. Okay. Because of our limited class space, what we did this semester is we divided the class into 2 classes so that we could create social distancing in the physical classroom. So 9 students meet on Monday, and then the other 9 students meet on Wednesday, and they get the exact same material. There were some changes in how the schedule is set up. So what it's going to look like when you see the schedule live in spring 2021, this class division will actually appear in the schedule as 2 distinct sections, each capped at 9 students. They're really the same class, and those 2 small sections will be combined in the asynchronous online portion. Okay, and some of you may have some questions about that, but I'll come back to that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the placement though. Next slide. Okay, so to go back to what happens if a student doesn't have test scores. This is a dilemma that all universities across the United States encountered this year. And so many of us at different universities started brainstorming about ways that we could address this. And some universities had already adopted something called directed self-placement. And many of the major universities, the larger universities, did different kinds of webinars where we discussed and looked at models that have been successful at other universities. So our composition committee here at Missouri State sat down and looked at the different models and developed an online self-placement tool. You can go ahead and click and click. And what we came up with is this online directed self-placement. So if you have a student who has no test scores, this is even if it's an international student, a student in continuing education, or a traditional student, they can go to the online directed self-placement, the DSP. And it's very easy to find. If you simply type in English placement, this webpage will pop up. Next slide. So essentially what the directed self-placement is, it's an online questionnaire designed to measure a student's level of comfort and experience with the kinds of readings and assignments and activities they're going to be expected to do here at Missouri State University. The DSP is not a test. It's a tool to assist the student in selecting the appropriate entry-level composition course. Next slide. So the online questionnaire takes approximately 10 minutes for the student to complete. So when you're working with the student could go in and actually do it right there. The kinds of questions the questionnaire asks about are things getting at past experiences with writing, the length of papers, the genres that students have written in, the kind of reading that they've done, how comfortable they are with different kinds of processes, getting peer response. There's a variety of different questions that are asked. All of these are coded with particular numbers. Based on that, on this kind of hidden cumulative score, a course recommendation appears to the student once they've done the questionnaire that recommends either English 100, the co-requisite, or English 110. Then they see a detailed description of each course that provides information about how many credit hours the class is, the kinds of assignments that they will be doing, the kinds of activities, even the number of assignments. From that, then the computer system is designed to ask the student, so which class, based on the recommendation we gave you and the course descriptions, do you intend to enroll in? Once they select one of those, the next thing that appears is a message. If they've selected English 100, it basically says you've already received permission and you can enroll in the class. If it says the co-requisite or writing 1, my email pops up and they send me an email requesting for an override for the class, and I process the override. I will tell you, this semester, we've only had 21 students. We were anticipating, based on what admissions shared, about 125 students. So far, we've only had 21 students actually use the placement tool, but from what we can track, it seems to be very, very accurate. We actually piloted the DSP at the end of last semester in spring to code it with the students that were in the class and what they would have scored, depending on whether they were in English 100 or 110. So let me see if there are questions that any of you have. I'll check the chat over here. You've got my email there. You're certainly welcome to email any questions that you've got, but we're anticipating that this DSP, directed self-placement, will probably be even more important with some of the changes that are happening in admissions in future semesters.
Okay, Margaret, thank you. I hope I did you justice with the clicking. It's a little challenging.
You did great.
I haven't seen the presentation, so hopefully that. Okay, well, thanks, Margaret. I appreciate you being here. And for our last speaker, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany Wise. Brittany is the coordinator of the Psychology Advisement Center. Brittany is also our chair for Provost Academic Advising Council. Brittany, it's all yours.
All right. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. I have switched to wireless headphones for the first time, so I just wanted to double check. Like Ross mentioned, I will be chairing the Provost Academic Advising Council. Whereas this might not be a new topic, it might be new to advisors who recently become advisors at Missouri State University. So we wanted to take some time and let you know about this council. So the council is a platform. So the council is a platform for advisors to have a voice on campus. There are 4 charges associated with the Provost Academic Advisory Council. So our purpose is to evaluate the administration and delivery of advising services to all students and to make recommendations for improvements, to identify current advising practices that are successful and encourage those practices among more advisors, to work to enhance consistency and quality within the advising system and support student development initiatives, and also be available for consultation as policy decisions are made that affect academic advising at Missouri State University. Along with these charges, the AAC also finds ways to recognize advisors, like providing the advising support and graduate student awards. I'd like to take a moment to kind of highlight some of the positive outcomes that have occurred based on the AAC that you might be familiar with. If you go to the website, you will see a list of best practices that have been designed for advisors, advisement centers, even group and hybrid advising. Another initiative that was a result of the committee was the change to the policy on our advisor releases. If you've been here for several years, you might have seen this change where students after 75 credit hours no longer needed a release from an advisor, which included transfer students. And now we've changed it to 75 hours plus and 3 releases. So if you came in and you had more than 75 hours, you would still be required to meet with an academic advisor. The committee, the AAC represents Missouri State University's colleges and academics. It's comprised of several members with various backgrounds and roles at MSU, including but not limited to advisors, graduate advisors, coordinators of advisement centers, and staff advisors. So we have a great mix of people. And so what the goal is with this session, the reason why I'm talking about the AAC is that we want your input. We're going to have a meeting toward the end of the month to discuss initiatives for this upcoming year. And we want to hear from you what concerns or initiatives that you might want to see us pursue. So there's 2 ways you can go about this at the moment. We can open up the floor and have a discussion. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other, or you can utilize the chat function. Let me go ahead and stop the share. So would anybody be interested in speaking first?
I'll put it in the chat, but there's also, I don't know if the Advising Council is still using it, but there's a form that you can submit suggestions to on the Academic Advising and Transfer Center website. And so I don't know if that's still something that's being checked. If it is, I can put that link in the chat.
Absolutely. Yep. And that was something I was going to mention at the very end, is that we do have that form. So if you want to put it in the chat, that would be wonderful. And I know it can be kind of awkward to put people on the spot, but if there is anything, any initiatives you'd like us to pursue, we'd really love to hear from you. We're a voice for all advisors on campus.
I think something that is probably very relevant for this semester is addressing like the dissemination of information. And so like, for example, the registration date being pushed back to October 1st, advisors weren't really made aware of that. I think as soon as we probably needed to make adjustments. And so I know that's not the council's fault at all. And with a university of this size, it's very challenging to make sure everyone gets the information that they need exactly when they need it. But that would be something I think would be worth addressing, and especially with a recent example.
Thank you.
And one thing that comes to mind for me is there used to be a handout, best practices in advising, which I'm not sure I use much, but it would seem like it would be kind of nice review for me. I've been around forever and ever, but I only advise 5-6 students every semester. And then I forget from semester to semester, year to year, what the best practices are, and are there any updates to that? So I don't know, it may be on your website. I haven't looked, it just kind of occurred to me.
Perfect. And I think it is on the website. If you go to this main page on the left-hand side, we do have links here that show best practices.
Excellent. Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brittany, will you show us how you got to that page?
Oh, absolutely. I think I actually just typed in Provost Academic. Oh, I've got the chat over here. I've just put Provost Academic, and it's the first link that appears, the Provost Academic Advising Council. On this page, you will see our standing members who come back every year, and our rotating members who normally serve a 2-year term, or maybe 3 years. Below the membership is actually where that fillable form is. And then, like I mentioned, on the left-hand side is where you can find our reports, best practices, items such as that. And I'm looking at the chat. It looks like they would like the council to look at promotions, accolades for staff advisors. So we will add that to the topics to discuss. What else?
Brittany, something that has come up in our unit, and I've mentioned this to Ross before as well, it'd be wonderful to have more web resources for advisors in a little bit more of a centralized place. So we have these best practices. Are there more things we could include for just like a go-to if you're just not sure where to start, not sure who to ask questions to? So that could be something to consider, is what would a good resource for advisors online? And I know we're working on some of that with Master Advisor, but are there things that should come from you all as well? That might be something to think about, and I'd be happy to talk about that as we revise our website too, so we're not overlapping.
Absolutely. That is definitely a great point. I was thinking that today, in the psychology department, we reserve classes for certain populations, and I know criminology does as well. And I was like, just wondering, man, it would be really great if we had a place where you could go to one spot and kind of get all that information of where stuff's reserved. Thank you. My phone, that was my alarm to know that we only had a couple minutes left on the meeting. Do we have it? Does anybody else want to say any more feedback before the meeting comes to a conclusion? All right, I'll hand it back over to Ross.
Okay, thanks, Brittany. And again, what Christina and Brittany mentioned with that online form, please, as you continue to think about things that you would like to see as advisors, please complete that online form, or send Brittany an email as chair about ideas. We really want to hear from the advising community and be as inclusive as possible. And we really want you all to help guide us this academic year and the best way for us as a council to move forward. Brittany, I really appreciate you joining us and discussing the role of advising council on campus and seeking feedback. Thank you. Again, as a final reminder,
My pleasure.
As a final reminder, please make sure that your name is entered in the chat. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, since it did come up about the spring class schedule being released on October 1st, know that for those of you who perhaps may be working with incoming transfer students for the spring 2021 semester, you can still utilize the degree audit. You would have to have the student's Bear Pass number, the M number, but then if you just open up the degree audit, you would be able to put that student's Bear Pass number in and use that to at least view remaining requirements, view what classes are transferring in. So I know that that's not the necessarily the way we've done in the past, and you may want to have a follow-up appointment, but I just want to mention that that is an option for those of you who may be anxious to start seeing those transfer students for the spring semester. Well, thank you all for being here. Thanks for participating in the first Zoom advisor forum. Please continue to check the advisor forum schedule. It'll be inside Missouri State for the remainder of the fall semester. You can also check out the advisor forum schedule on our website. Christina Bowles and Jamie Ross will be doing an advisor forum, I believe, on September 30th. Christina, is that? Yes, September 30th from 12 to 1 on remote advising. And that's something that we've all had to embrace in recent months. So I look forward to hearing from Christina and Jamie on that. Thanks to all of our presenters today. And again, thank you all for being here. Have an absolutely wonderful Monday. Bye.